Tormund Giantsbane, the Laugh of the Wild. Prologue. In the frozen heart of the true north, where the winds of winter carried the cries of wolves and the mountains cut the sky with jagged teeth, there was a man whose laughter echoed like thunder across the endless white. His name was Tormund, son of no great house, lord of no castle, but king in his own way, a king of freedom, of fire, of the wild spirit that no wall of stone could cage. They called him Giantsbane, though whether the tale was truth or drunken boast, none could say. What could be said, however, was that few men in all the lands of Westeros had a spirit so unbroken, a will so vast, or a heart so fierce. His story is not one of silk and crowns, but of snow and steel, of love and war, of loyalty and the laughter that defied even death. The blood of the free folk. Tormund was born beneath a sky alive with the shimmering lights of the aurora. His first cries mingled with the howling of direwolves, a fitting chorus for one destined to be more than a nameless wildling. His mother was a huntress, hardened by the winters, his father a raider whose hands were calloused from bow and axe. From them, Tormund inherited a love of the wilds and a spirit that bent to no law but that of strength and survival. As a boy, he ran with the wolves, climbed the frozen cliffs barefoot, and drank the fire of his father's tales. He was taught to hunt, to fight, to laugh at fear. When other children wept at the storms that buried their camps in snow, Tormund roared with laughter, daring the gods themselves to silence him. Even then, there was a wild joy about him, a refusal to let the cold or death itself conquer his spirit. But he was not just a brute. Beneath the red beard and the booming laughter, Tormund carried a sharp mind. He understood his people in a way many chieftains did not. He saw their hunger, their pain, their longing for freedom beyond the wall. In his heart burned a vision of more than endless raids and endless winters. He dreamed of survival, not only of victory. The Giantsbane legend. Every hero of the free folk carried a story, and Tormund's was one that he told more than anyone else. Around fires, with horn in hand, he would recount the tale of how he once killed a giant and, afterward, suckled at the teat of the giant's wife, feeding on her milk for strength. Some would laugh, some would doubt, and some would half believe, but all listened, for the way Tormund told it was half the magic. In his telling, the giant's milk made him what he was, large, fierce, and unstoppable. His voice boomed with pride as he spoke of tearing into the flesh of his foes, of breaking bones like twigs. Whether truth or boast, the story became part of him, an inseparable piece of his identity. He was the Giantsbane, a name that carried both fear and laughter wherever it was heard. Raider, father, leader. Tormund rose among his people not by blood but by valor. He led raids against the Night's Watch, against villages south of the Wall, against anyone who dared call the free folk lesser men. His axes sang with fury, his laugh rose above the clash of swords, and his people followed him. He became a father many times over, his children scattered across the camps of the wildlings, his sons and daughters as fierce as their sire. Yet, even as a leader, he never lost the joy in life. Where others grew bitter from hunger and endless fighting, Tormund embraced it all. He drank deep, loved hard, and fought with a spirit that inspired those around him. For the free folk, leadership was not given, it was earned, and Tormund earned it tenfold. The Wall and the Crow. The coming of Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, changed everything. Tormund was no stranger to pride, but he bent the knee to Mance willingly, not as a servant, but as a brother. He saw in Mance the same vision he carried in his heart, a hope of more than endless death in the snows. And then came the Crow, Jon Snow. At first, Tormund saw him as an enemy, a black-clad boy of the Watch, filled with the same lies Southerners always carried. But there was something in Jon's eyes, something that reminded Tormund of fire under ice. It was Ygritte who first fell for the boy, but it was Tormund who came to trust him, in time, as a brother. He mocked him, called him Crow, laughed at his solemn ways, but beneath it all, he saw the truth. Jon Snow was more wildling than he was a man of the Watch. The war against the dead. When the true enemy revealed itself, not the crows, not the kings of the south, but the dead, Tormund's role became more than raider, more than chieftain. He became a bridge between two worlds. He fought beside Jon, beside the Watch, beside men who once would have slit his throat without a word. He stood in Hardhome, where the dead rose in numbers beyond counting. He fought with axe and fist, with fire and fury, against an enemy that could not be killed. He saw giants fall, children turn to shadows of ice, men torn apart and risen again. Yet still he laughed, even in the face of despair. For Tormund, laughter was defiance, and as long as he lived, the dead would never truly win. The heart of Tormund. Beneath all the fire and the boasting, there was a heart in Tormund that beat with loyalty and love. He loved his people with a ferocity unmatched, and when he followed Jon south of the wall, it was not just for survival, it was for friendship, for brotherhood. He became one of Jon's truest allies, a man who stood by him even when others turned away. And there was Brienne. To Tormund, she was the woman of giants, tall and strong and unyielding. His eyes burned with desire every time he saw her, his grin stretching from ear to ear. To others, it was a jest, a wildling's lust, but in truth, it was admiration. In Brienne, Tormund saw the same wild spirit he carried himself, a soul unbroken by the world. Eternal flame. Tormund's tale did not end with a crown, nor with a throne of stone. It ended, and yet it did not end, in laughter. For even when the wars were done, when the dead were driven back, and the crows returned to their castles, Tormund remained. He led his people once more into the free north, into the wilds where they belonged. He left the wall behind, left the politics of southerners behind, and returned to the only kingdom he ever needed, the endless snows, the firelight of camps, the roar of laughter in the dark. He was a raider, a father, a leader, a fool, and a hero. He was Tormund Giantsbane, whose laughter rang louder than the howling of winter itself. And as long as the free folk remember, his story will be told around their fires, the tale of the man who killed a giant, drank its milk, loved with all his heart, and laughed in the face of death.